Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. Practically since day one on this channel, you guys have begged us to test some HILTI tools. Many of you calling out the very model number of today's subject, the SIW22T-A Akkuschlagschrauber. Am I pronouncing that right?
Und this is the HILTI Akkuschlagschrauber.
Well, anyways, their impact wrench, basically. To be honest, I haven't picked up a HILTI tool since my cabinetry days, and back then, much of the HILTI I grabbed said made in Germany or even Liechtenstein on it, which is still today their global headquarters. But this model, yeah, this is made in China, like most power tools from the brand and, well, most brands in general nowadays. And this one, despite being their latest sort of full-size half-inch, is sort of from back in the day, noticeably lacking that brushless moniker in the product name like some of their later introductions. But this is their biggest half-inch cordless, so you guys wanted to see it, and to be honest, we want to see it too, because HILTI is now introducing an all-new line of cordless tools this year, many in the pipeline and being announced this month. So if we plan to test any of those upcoming models, we need to know how far we've come, if at all, from their current lineup. HILTI is known for being one of the top brands when it comes to durability, and their warranty speaks to that. 2 years for any wear and tear and 20 years for materials and workmanship. To be honest, that surpasses some of the lifetime warranty and service details we've seen, because those can be limited to the lifetime of a specific tool in production, and in cordless, that can be quite short. Speaking of a handful of years though, this 22T-A's torque claims are a bit of a blast from the past as well, still in the inch-pounds for a half-inch impact, and that 3,982 inch-pounds works out to just 332 foot-pounds. So despite this being sort of their higher torque, biggest half-inch model, not sporting high torque figures. I mean, the Walmart Heart sort of did the same thing, quite long and big, but still a mid-torque really, and that was a recent introduction. This HILTI is 4.8 pounds, which is even less than a couple of the mid-torques we've tested so far, and well under any high-torque cordless we've gotten our hands on, so we'll have to see just how it stacks up in the grand scheme of things. HILTI's pretty upfront about this tool being designed for job site construction and, quote, optimized for HILTI's screw anchors and frame anchors. It's not like they show this thing removing Honda crank bolts, so we got to keep that in mind. Despite having a reputation for extremely expensive tools, this one is just $229, which didn't seem that insane. And heck, we bought a HILTI charger for just 38 bucks. Having recently come off of a string of tool truck impacts, that seemed pretty inoffensive to us. I guess they're China-made tools. They sort of pass some of that cost savings on there. But what kind of beans do you get for those $229? As a reminder, all the torque values on this channel are in comparison to an old school impact wrench your father might have used that sort of built this country, an IR231H, with old school torque ratings that no one ever had reason to question. But some brands seem a bit more aspirational than others when it comes to their ratings nowadays, a phenomenon we attribute to marketing wank usurping traditional engineering standards. As a result, we can only assume to be from marketing executives now being paid more in this day and age than engineers and people who actually use these tools. But let's see where HILTI falls on that scale. We're going to first throw in a couple models also from some years past, but brushless, from DeWalt and Milwaukee in the form of these two mid-torques. Our first test is called Working Torque, a 5-second process in forward. Alright, and lastly, we're going to add another large brushed motor impact from Harbor Freight, the Earthquake 20 volt. That's much bigger and much heavier to sort of set the foundation for seeing where the HILTI really belongs categorically. Quite a gap, that step up in high torques. Now for the HILTI SIW22T-A. $273, right between the M18 and DeWalt. Decently strong mid-torque category, but not quite high torque category, so we can drop that from the comparison for now. Our next test is max torque, a 60-plus-year-old testing standard, 10 seconds in reverse. Here's the DeWalt and Milwaukee going head-to-head. That DeWalt now able to build a gap, at least in this 10-second test. And here's that huge but not quite hefty HILTI. .337, and again positioned between the two other mid-torques here. One thing we noticed about this HILTI is despite its size, which you'd expect to dampen things out a bit, it moves around quite a bit, sort of bringing high torque vibes on the feel, but not quite yet with the power delivery. In person, you definitely feel like you're doing more than what the dyno says. All right, last test series, and for this we want to inject one of the most modern, more powerful, and certainly much smaller mid-torques than Milwaukee Gen 2, which also gives you the opportunity to see the Gen 1 versus Gen 2 compared on screen if you haven't seen that as well. Here's that. .451, some impressive peak gains over the Gen 1, but just look at the gap under the curve there. An impressive sequel to that first M18 if you ask us. All right, last chance for the HILTI to put up some points before we visit the leaderboard. .384, and the HILTI snuggling in there where it's lived on most of today's testing between the two DeWalt and Milwaukee mid-torques. Is that enough to score some points though at this price point? Let's find out. Starting down here next to another big chonker mid-torque from Harbor Freight, the HILTI's runs are turned into points as 27, 34, and 38. It's very long, not going to be fitting this everywhere, but that may not matter to you a whole lot on a job site driving anchors and such. It gets 41.7 foot-pounds per inch. Surprisingly not bad in this category because it does make some power. And the power it claimed when converted to foot-pounds is 332, and it made that in its max torque test, like most old school impacts have traditionally done. And hit a high of 384 here, so over-delivering if you ask us, gets the max of 100% here, something not common in this mid-torque category. $229 is a lot for this amount of beans, and especially in the mid-torque category, it gets 25.2 points. That's enough to total 265.9 though, or basically just above the rigid octane mid-torque, which makes similar power. Is shorter for sure, but didn't come super close to its torque claims. So the HILTI wins out there, which is sort of the reason we made this channel, to shine some light on this stuff after all. We ain't mad at the HILTI. Many of you have commented like the HILTI is unattainable levels of pricing, and I mean, it's not that bad. The power it brings may not be modern 2022 brushless levels, but it's pretty far from being a 2022 brushless tool. It's nice to sometimes see a less space age Power Ranger-esque design cordless tool like this one come across our workbench, and its smooth dual injection moldings is comfortable and feels of quality. Its warranty is also nice and brings some of that assurance as well. We're excited to see what else the brand can offer with their new 2022 line and how it compares to models like this one. Come along for the ride with us to see that. Or don't. I mean, I'm not your real dad anyways. Thanks for watching.